All right, I see we have a few more people filtering in, so I think we'll start right now. So, welcome everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the very first episode of the DeSci Rising Twitter series put on by DeSci World. My name is Jelani. I'm behind the DeSci World handle. I'm a core team member at DeSci World, and we're very glad that many of you have taken time out of the day to come join us on this new series that we've launched. And so, considering that this is our first episode, I figured I'd kind of give a brief background as to how we came up with the idea for this series. And so, as many of you know, at DeSci World, we have a dashboard that lists many of the projects that are building in the DeSci space. And so, the idea behind DeSci Rising is that we wanted to develop a platform that provided an opportunity to these wonderful projects to kind of formally introduce themselves, update their progress, highlight their achievements, and just kind of generally engage with both the DeSci World community, but also the wider DeSci community at large. And the reason for this is that at DeSci World, we very much believe that more than the tech, though that is important, more than the funding, though that is very important, it is actually the community, specifically using these tools, that will usher in many of the changes that we are all here looking for across the various STEM industries. And so, with that said, and without further ado, I would like to first formally thank the team at Medical Watch for being our inaugural guests. We're very honored to have them here. And I would like to formally open the floor to Avik and the team to introduce themselves.
Hi, Jelani. Hi, everyone. This is Avik Ghosh from Medical Watch. Thank you for having me.
Hi, Avik. Um, so I guess, we'll kind of just start this off with the general way. Introduce yourself. We'd love to hear how you came up with the idea of Medical Watch. What is your history? How long you've been in this space? Just give us a general rundown of who you are.
Yeah, sure. Happy to. So let's see where to start. How we started or how we came up with the idea for Medical Watch. So really came from my father. So my father was a scientist at the University of Washington. He spent over 40 years teaching and doing research in mineral and material physics. He worked on some of the first lunar samples from the Apollo missions. He even has a mineral that's named after him. It's called gauchite. Now, in all that time that he did research and so forth, he was either co-author or participating author on over 200 research papers. Now, scientific publishers like Elsevier and Springer made millions off of those papers, but during that entire time, my father never made more than $85,000 a year as the employee of a public institution. So we thought that was unfair. We thought it's incredibly unfair, and I can almost feel my blood rising as I speak. But this really gave us the idea that scientific publishers and others have too much power in this space, and that's what led us to Medical Watch. Now, what we're building with Medical Watch is a medical knowledge base for the world. Every disease, every disorder, every language available on every device. So think about it a little bit like a medical version of Wikipedia plus up to date, if anyone's familiar with up to date. And the goal is to build a system or a product that will be available for doctors and HCPs worldwide to help treat their patients. So if we're successful, HCPs will have access to real-time medical information. Again, every disease, every disorder, and it will be free for HCPs, and we plan to fund it by pharma. So hopefully that's a good introduction.
No, that's a great introduction. And, just the story of your father alone, I believe, echoes many of the stories that we've heard throughout DeSci and throughout the wider traditional science, right? That there's this kind of misaligned incentive, this almost predatory infrastructure that basically uses scientists and the scientific community to kind of support their own financial, you know, elevation at the expense of the hard work that we're doing. That's
Absolutely, for sure. So just to share some stats with you, in the US, doctors direct about 73% of the total healthcare spend in the US, which is over $4 trillion. A lot of money. So they're the number one target of pharma. Pharma spends $7.3 billion in the US every year to influence doctors. Now, how much of that goes to doctors or goes to researchers? Very little, because doctors are not collectivized. They have very little bargaining power. And so middlemen have taken over that role, and they take the majority of that spend. When I say middlemen, I mean advertising agencies, advertising networks, and of course, our favorite, scientific publishers. And so our goal with Medical Watch is to really redirect that spend, or the bulk of the spend, from pharma to doctors in a way that doctors can use for any purpose they see fit, whether that's patient advocacy, patient support, additional research, etc. So that's really our goal with Medical Watch.
That's great. And it's interesting that you bring that up because I've noticed a trend where I think I was reading an article that highlighted the statistics of the fact that now it seems that medical professionals, much like basic researchers, they're moving away from these more archaic forms of knowledge transfer and dissemination like journals, and are capitalizing on the open access nature of social networks, social media, to kind of do this. And so, I wonder what what exactly are the limitations that these healthcare professionals are kind of facing with this social media aspect? Is it something that they are using to the full capacity? Is the goal of Medical Watch to kind of provide them with a better structure, a better platform with which to get by with doing this?
Yeah, sure. So I'll explain a little bit more. So it's almost cliche to say this, but I think a big catalyst for this was the pandemic. So during the pandemic, there was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of questions about from HCPs, how do you treat patients with a particular condition? If I have a patient who's on chemotherapy, should he or she get the vaccine? How should I treat this patient who's immunocompromised with um, COVID treatments, etc.? So there's a lot of questions and answers from the HCP community. So it really seemed like Twitter, primarily Twitter, but to a lesser degree on LinkedIn and YouTube, Twitter had become this real time medical knowledge base for HCPs that, to your point, Jelani, was more accurate, more real time, more up to date than journals, which just couldn't keep up, right? And so we thought, what if we created a way to pull that information, that real-time medical information from Twitter and other social media platforms, and put it together in a searchable database available for every HCP and available for patients too, potentially, because there are some patient advocates and patients who are very, very educated on their particular disease or disorder, and make that free. And I'll share an example here. So let's say you've got a patient with lung cancer. The HCP, his or her doctor, will prescribe a set of drugs or a set of treatments to treat that patient based upon the patient's characteristics, like age or gender or physical health. Also, what's the stage of disease? Are we talking about an early stage of lung cancer, like 1, or are we talking about an advanced stage, like 3 or 4? And what other comorbidities or other conditions that patient may have that would complicate treatment? That could be things like diabetes or heart disease or hypertension, etc. So, what happens in that scenario is the HCP will use or follow a set of guidelines, which are essentially a set of recommendations for how to treat a patient with a standard set of drugs that are approved for that treatment and potentially other treatments like chemotherapy and so forth. However, we also know that a lot of times, and this was true in my father's case, the drugs didn't work. So that doctor treats the patient with, let's say, one drug to start, but it doesn't work. Then the doctor tries a second drug, but sometimes that doesn't work either. So now the doctor is in a really tough spot, right? If she cannot do something to help her patient, the patient gets sicker, the tumor increases in size, and eventually the patient will die. So in that case, sometimes the doctor will use other drugs which are approved but not necessarily approved in lung cancer or for that specific subtype of lung cancer. if that makes sense. Because again, that doctor is desperate, right? Now, sometimes trying these drugs, which are not approved for a particular subtype or indication, sometimes that works. And in pharma, there's a term for it called off-label use. We might use a term like repurposing. But essentially, all of this knowledge, this real world medical knowledge or real world evidence, which is jargon in the pharma community, this today resides in the heads of doctors. And to your point, it's real time. It's more current, more accurate than what you would find in a journal article. Today, doctors share this information with each other internally at ground rounds meetings or tumor boards. Externally, they'll share it at medical conferences, but also on social media. And so that's what led us to build this system, Medical Watch, which will help pull those medical conversations off of social media and make them searchable and accessible to everyone who treats a particular patient or has a patient in their family that they want to care for.
I think that's amazing. I think that actually integrates very well with some of the other projects or entities or organizations that are building the space, right? I think a major focus of DeSci is the concept of how do we make use of off-patent drugs, off-patent pharmaceuticals that the pharma industry is no longer really interested in funding, and how can we repurpose these to help patient populations? And I imagine that having healthcare professionals or a platform that caters to healthcare professionals that can give anecdotal but data-backed um, examples and information on the application of these would be hugely, hugely um, valuable in terms of determining which off-patent drugs are worth investigating and the like. So I think this is a huge layer on top of what is currently being built at the ground level, at the tech level of the DeSci movement.
We think
Um,
so, yeah. So there are a lot of organizations in DeSci and elsewhere that focus on the preclinical or clinical stages of research. So what we're building is not a substitute for RCTs or other research. But like you said, Jelani, it's hopefully a layer on top of it to contextualize and make sense of some of these projects.
I love it because very rarely do we see or have I run into projects that are specifically looking at healthcare professionals. To your point, right? It's either basic research, basic scientists, and to a lesser extent, patient populations. But I feel that medical professionals kind of sit at the top of that, and we really haven't been catering, or at least I have not seen organizations catering to this population demographic. And so, kind of in line with that, though, some of the limitations that we see throughout DeSci is that scientists, and I'm sure healthcare professionals are the same, are kind of resistant to change to an extent. They're not necessarily as eager to try these new platforms that we're developing. And so, have you on your end had any resistance in terms of adopting or getting HCPs to be interested in beta testing or whatever platforms you guys are developing, or have you had success with these HCPs?
Great question. And the short answer is yes and no. So a little context that might be helpful. So we've been in this space since 2014. And in 2014, we built the first analytics tool for medical affairs organizations within pharma. Medical affairs, for those who don't know, is a group within pharma that is comprised of PhDs, MDs, nurse practitioners who go out and have scientific conversations, peer-to-peer conversations with HCPs. So they're not marketing, they're not sales reps, and so forth. So we built that tool, and today that tool, which is called Kernel, is used by customers in 30 countries. So that's really what's fueled our our company here. Now, later in 2016, we also built a medical research app called Case, which was designed to bring the most up-to-date medical research based upon journal articles, which is a little embarrassing for me to say, but that's what we built. And we ran that for a couple of years. Did not work. It failed. But all of this to sort of answer your question, which is we have a lot of experience in this space. To put it clearly, yes, doctors are really hard to reach. They are incredibly busy, time poor. They are typically risk averse late adopters of technology, and they're quite skeptical, and I would say rightly so, of business people. They usually only trust other doctors, and sometimes not even then. So, are we getting success with doctors? We haven't reached out to many doctors yet. Or to this point, our focus has been on building a product that pharma can use and will pay for. And you can think about it like this: the first phase of Medical Watch is a medical database that pharma will use and pay for to understand what doctors are saying about their drugs or their disease category. Why is that important? Pharma wants to know these conversations because they want to know what doctors care about. Again, we go back to that $7.3 billion annual spend that pharma uh, undertakes every year to influence doctors. Well, they want to know what doctors think, and this is a great way to do that. Now, how do we get doctors? So, one thing is doing podcasts like this or spaces like this, which we can reach out to the HCP community and hopefully get their involvement. But also, we want to take the majority of the revenue from Medical Watch and give that back to doctors in a way that is transparent and free of any conflicts or even the appearance of conflicts. And so our plan is at some point, once we reach product market fit with Medical Watch, we'll create a DAO that HCPs and other doctors can join and develop a set of shared principles and mission and decide how to share the revenue from pharma. That's our plan.
I mean, that's great. And that kind of answers what my follow-up question would have been is to considering that you just gave out this laid out history of you guys already having launched, maybe not similar, but the precursor forms of these platforms in the Web 2 space. My question was going to be why jump into the Web 3 space? And I think the idea of having a DAO that is governed by these obviously community kind of fits that. Is there any other reason why you have specifically focused on foraying into Web3 instead of maintaining a Web2 entity?
There isn't a good way to compensate HCPs for their medical knowledge and experience that they share on social media without a DAO. So I think it was the guys from Alliance DAO who made this comment on a YouTube video a while ago that tokenomics isn't a replacement for product market fit. So we agree with that. So that's why we're taking the approach where we want to reach product market fit with Medical Watch with pharma and then use those funds to compensate doctors. Doctors will pay attention, we believe, if two things are true. One is we compensate them for their hard-earned knowledge. And just to segue into this a little bit, for the most part, doctors don't go into medicine to make money. That's not their primary goal. There are other easier ways to make money if you're super educated and smart. However, we also believe, going back to my father's experience, it's unfair for others to generate billions of dollars on the backs of their hard earned knowledge and efforts in this space. We would rather redirect the funds to doctors so they can use it for any purpose they see fit, whether it's supporting patients, etc. But to go back to what I was saying earlier, we believe doctors will pay attention if one, we can redirect funds to them in a way that they believe is fair and equitable, and two, we provide an easier way for them to stay up to date with the most current medical information or real world knowledge that's occurring in their specific disease categories, the diseases that they treat, and the types of patients that they see.
I think this is great. I think, another aspect that can definitely be tapped in and will probably grow organically is in a way of allowing this HCP doctor driven platform and sharing of or dissemination of information on a global scale, right? I imagine that as your platform gets flushed out, whether you're a doctor in North America, Europe, South America, all over the world, you basically create a network and a concentrated network that allow for this dissemination of knowledge on a global scale. I think that is very powerful in terms of influencing how people get treated, not just, in the more affluent countries, but across the world. I think that's a very
Absolutely.
nice point.
For sure. If you're a doctor at Stanford Medicine, you have access to every single medical journal and resource you could ever want. However, if you are in India or Indonesia or Argentina, I don't know if Caro is listening, but hey, Caro. So if you're in Argentina, if you're in these other countries which don't have access to the resources that we do in more affluent countries, you're at a disadvantage. And therefore, you cannot treat your patients with the same level of care and support that a doctor at Stanford Medicine might be able to do. And we think that's unfair.
Absolutely unfair. And I think it sits at the crux of what we're trying to change with DeSci. And so to that point, have you had opportunities to present this to healthcare professionals and get their feedback? Have there been some tests? Have they been able to share with you what they believe, what they think is of the platform? Or have you guys not at that point yet?
Not at that point yet. So we've really focused on pharma because that's where the revenue will come from. And today we've got about a dozen or so pharma companies, and we just doubled our user base in pharma. So the number of actual users within pharma companies over the last couple of months. And if you ask me what happened on Tuesday, I have another update for you on that.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. Not, not yet.
Okay,
That'll be the sweet cherry at the top at the end.
cool.
And so what I like to kind of when I speak to organizations, what I kind of like to get a feel from them is what is their moonshot? What is the ultimate success of your platform look like in your mind? Kind of give us a picture of how you see it all unfolding.
Sure. So if we're successful, we'll look a little bit like a medical version of Wikipedia plus up to date, which I mentioned is a tool to help doctors treat patients with a particular disease or injury or disorder. Something that is available worldwide for free, something that doctors can contribute their knowledge, their wisdom, their advice, and in return, they'll get funds for that. Whether it's through the DAO, whether it's through NFTs that we might enable doctors to take advantage of, and if you wanted to really ask me what the moonshot is, I think one way this could go is an online education system for aspiring doctors, right? So we would have the most up to date real time medical knowledge to treat any patient worldwide. Why not use that information to educate aspiring doctors? And maybe in the future, we don't need all of these somewhat archaic credentialing systems that we have today, right? If you are, let's say you're really smart and you grow up in a underprivileged country and you don't have access to medical schools or you can't pay the fees and so forth. What if we could make that available to anyone who wants to become a doctor? I think that's something that we would love to see happen.
Absolutely. I think one really underrated and under discussed point of not just DeSci, but Web3 in general is this idea of decentralized education, or maybe not decentralized education as a moniker, but this alternative source of information that can be used to accredit these individuals or interested individuals to be considered not necessarily professionals, but kind of give them this venture, this foray into space where they can develop skill sets that are still wildly applicable to real world scenarios, right? There's no reason, like you said, for somebody who is gifted and interested, but maybe have been born in a place that doesn't have the opportunity to not have the opportunity to seek out and reach the heights that they're, interested in reaching. And I think
For
things
sure.
exactly what you're talking about as a utility, as a platform that can help support these individuals is severely underrated and should be something that we speak about much, much more. So I'm very happy and honored that you've shared that aspect with us.
For sure. We know
Um,
that talent and intelligence is equally distributed, but opportunities are not. And that's something where if we can be a part of that solution, then I think I could go into the next phase of my life or go to my grave very, very happy.
well, hopefully not anytime soon. Um, so, considering that you are building in Web3, what is, and even though it may not be live right now, but what is a way that we as a community can, and those of us who are interested, can help contribute or contribute to the platform?
Sure. So there's two areas that we have as primary needs. So one is, and you touched on this earlier, we'd like to partner with HCPs in a particular specialty to help give us feedback, contribute to the platform, perhaps maintain the information or update the information on the platform. So we'd really like to work with a number of HCPs on this because obviously, to your point, we need to build something that they like and find useful and ideally love. So that's one. Two, we'd like to work with engineers in the Web3 space. As I mentioned, our team has a lot of experience in this space, but we're a Web2 company. We are Web2 engineering and product and so forth. We have very little knowledge of Web3. So if there are engineers who are interested in this project and have experience with Solidity and other Web3 technologies, we'd love to partner. Aside from that, we're really open to any ideas or suggestions from the community. So if anyone listening or listens to this later has ideas or would like to get involved, we'd love to meet you. So you can DM us on Twitter, or you can email us. It's support@medical.watch. I was going to give my name, but I think it'd probably be easier for everyone to remember support@medical.watch as opposed to my name, Avik, at medical.watch, but you're welcome to use either. But those are the ways that we'd like to partner with the community.
Absolutely. And to everybody who is listening, I will attest to the fact that Avik is a very approachable person, a very nice person, and he will definitely be interested in speaking with you if you do reach out to him directly. But in the case of conciseness, yes, going through support.medicalwatch. I'm sorry, would you want to repeat that email?
Sure. Support@medical.watch.
Yes, support@medical.watch. And a little bit of a shameless plug. All their information is present on the DeSci World dashboard. You can come there. We have all of their links, and we will be keeping that up to date so you can maintain and keep an eye on their progress. Um, I guess this kind of brings me to my next question in terms of you say you have the pharma, you have some examples of pharma companies that are interested. Is there an example of a real world medicine that they're specifically interested? What kind of brought their interest onto the platform?
Sure. So let's see how to answer this best. Pharma has a number of use cases or unmet needs that they would like to solve. So one is if they are entering a new therapeutic area like ovarian cancer, they want to know who are the top KOLs or thought leaders or influential HCPs who treat ovarian cancer. So that's one use case for us. Another one, like we talked about a little bit, which is what are doctors or HCPs in a particular disease area talking about online? Or what are their questions or concerns, or what doubts do they have? A lot of this information happens on Twitter, but it's fragmented. As you know, Twitter is not the easiest place to find aggregated information. It's disparate, it's disconnected. And pharma, as fairly late adopters to technology, they're really struggling with how to use Twitter. The last one is what are doctors' perspectives on a particular trial or on a particular approval? Do they think that, for example, if there's a new drug approved, will that change their practice? Will they switch from the drug they're currently using to treat a particular disease to that newly approved treatment? Things like this. And the other thing to mention that I think I glossed over, which is when the pandemic happened, access to doctors was really shut down to pharma for a long period of time. It used to be that their sales reps would call on a clinic, their medical science liaisons would meet KOLs at a particular institution, but of course, that face to face access was shut down. It was later reinstated in part through virtual meetings and Zoom and so forth, but it really hasn't recovered to pre pandemic levels. And more, medical institutions are shutting down access to pharma because of appearances of bias and so forth. But pharma still needs to know what doctors think. So they're using any avenue they can, and social media is a primary way they're trying to understand how doctors think and what they care about and what they think about specific drugs or trials.
I mean, I love it. I love the notion of kind of flipping the money flow on its head, right? Usually things flow, money flows to the pharma industries, but being able to capitalize on this void and capitalize on it in a way that is beneficial and rewarding to the community that is actually deriving and providing this information, I think is fundamental to what is going to be something that is useful and highly applicable in the world that we hope to have in the future. So, again, I'd like to congratulate and appreciate the work that you are doing that is facing healthcare professionals and helping them achieve their goals better. And so, with that said, let me ask, what happened on Tuesday?
So, sorry guys, I asked Jelani to ask me this question. So Tuesday was a really busy day at Medical Watch. So one is one of my core team members came down with COVID. Two, I was in a car accident.
Oh Lord, are
Interestingly,
you okay?
yeah, fine. But interestingly enough, I was hit by a doctor. More precisely, I was hit by an anesthesiologist who is a doctor who puts people to sleep. If he'd hit me any harder, he may have put me to sleep, but thankfully that did not happen. But the real the real information I want to share is that on Tuesday we got our first paid pharma customer for Medical Watch, and
Wow,
I
congratulations.
thank
I'm
you.
sure you can't disclose who that is, but that's very good.
I can't, but it's a top 5 pharma company, and when we go live with them, we will double our user base again from where it is today, and it's exciting for us for two reasons. One is, as you know, if a company is willing to pay for something, then that's a clear, fairly unbiased and objective sign that they find what we're doing valuable, and hopefully we can continue that. So it's an early sign of potential product market fit. And then two, it gives us revenue that we can share back with the doctors and HCPs who provided the information on Twitter to begin with.
Amazing. Amazing. I think, you know, it's great that you guys have started with the pharma. I think exactly to that point, right? Part of the breaking down of the resistance and the barriers to entry into Web3 is to have something already preset that you can give to these individuals. Like, here, we've done all of the work. This is your reward for the work that you've done in terms of helping everybody. So I think that's absolutely fantastic. I'm sorry that you got hit by a car, but congratulations for the first successful step, or not, maybe not the first, but a very big successful step in the development of Medical Watch.
Thank you, thank you. We hope to continue, but as you said earlier, we really need to work with the community to get us to where we'd like to go. It's not something we can do alone.
Absolutely, but at least now we have a proof of principle that pharma would be interested in partnering in this way. Um, and so I think with that, Avik, if there's no other points that you would like to personally speak on, I will open the conversation up to the wider guests in the spaces. Again, unless there is something else you would like to touch upon.
No, I think that was most of what I planned to say. Thank you for all the questions, and if the audience has questions, we're here.
Absolutely. So if anybody does have questions, please feel free to put up your hand. I will bring you up on stage and you can proceed with your questions and speaking to both I and Avik. All right, Ben, I've brought you up on stage. Feel free to ask your questions. Ben, I think you might need to unmute yourself if you, there we go. Oh,
Hello? Oh,
hi, Marie. I'll let you go. Sorry, Ben. I'll let her go first and then we'll go to you. Hi,
sounds
hi, how are you?
Hi, Jelani. Hi, Avik. I'm
Hello.
I'm speaking from São Paulo, Brazil. We are structuring a community for scientific publications, and I resonated with you when you said that medical doctors, scientists, we contribute a lot, and for a $26 billion scientific publishing industry, and we do not get anything back. And I have DM'd you so that we can exchange more ideas of our projects. We believe we have a lot in common.
Sounds great. Thank you. I'll read that DM as soon as I get off this call.
Great. And congratulations on your first client. I believe we can partner and do a lot more together. I hope you recovered from your crash. Looking forward to speaking to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Me too. So no injuries.
All
No
right.
injuries. I'm completely fine.
I'm
My
good.
car is not fine, but that's okay.
Oh, gee.
And sure, looking forward to speaking with you.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Jelani, for this opportunity. I'll talk to you soon as well.
Absolutely. I love seeing these, cross organization groupings. That's the point of us here at DeSci World. I
Oh,
like that.
yes. Yes. We are part of DeSci Brazil as well. We have,
Absolutely.
we have to keep this movement going. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Ben, feel free to unmute yourself and ask your questions.
Thank you. I'm a strategy consultant and an advisor to a few different Web3 companies and kind of fascinated by the DeSci movement. So I appreciate hearing your story, Avik. One question I have for you, you were talking a little bit about the work that this team had done prior to building Medical Watch. What more can you tell me about the team? Like, why this team in this moment? What is it about this team that is uniquely ready to solve this challenge? I would love to know more, just a little bit about the people behind the project, I guess.
Sure. Good question. So we have a couple of other core team members. We have Eric, who comes from LinkedIn and Intuit, and actually won a Scott Cook Innovation Award at Intuit. So he's a superstar product manager. Ryan is our other core team member, and he's got degrees in engineering from MIT. He actually studied artificial intelligence at MIT. He likes to do things in his spare time, like escape trap rooms and build adult incumbent or recumbent tricycles from scratch. So he's super smart, and he's essentially the architect of Medical Watch. But to answer your question, we have a lot of experience in this space. We started in 2014. We really started because of our spouses. So my wife works in pharma. Eric's wife works in pediatric oncology at Stanford. And that's how we got into software for pharma, which was fairly underdeveloped at the time. And over time, we've tried different approaches with, again, Kernel, our analytics tool for medical affairs organizations within pharma, as well as different apps like medical research apps and so forth. So we've learned a lot. We also have a huge network at pharma companies of people we can reach out to and ask them to try Medical Watch, so that we can get people trying it and giving us feedback as quickly as possible. So I won't say that we are the best team in this space. Obviously, we have a lot of Web 2 experience. We have essentially zero Web 3 experience, but we do have a lot of knowledge of what has worked and doesn't work. And hopefully we'll be able to apply that in a successful way.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
So, Avik, I actually had another question myself. So I know I've stated that I have yet to see anybody building something similar for, or at least facing healthcare professionals. Have you guys had the opportunity to run into anybody else in the sphere? So you said that you may not be the best team, but if you're the only team, then you are by definition the best team, right?
I don't,
So
yeah, we're not the kind of team that likes to brag about ourselves. I have not seen another team, so maybe at least for the moment, by default, we're the best. Interestingly enough, there are a number of HCPs who have used social media platforms like YouTube and Substack to create almost like mini media companies, which are sort of doing something similar, but I think their ambitions are a bit narrower and smaller in scale because, of course, their day job is being a physician or a nurse practitioner, etc. So we've seen a little bit of work on that side. There are companies like Cancer Grace, for example, who does this, but we haven't come across anyone with the vision and goals that we have, at least not yet.
well, that's great. And like I said, I applaud you for bringing this to the Web3 space, despite having, as you say, little to any knowledge of Web3. The beautiful aspects of Web3 is that as long as you have a community, they will help you reach the goals. As long as they believe in the mission, and I don't see why they wouldn't in this case, they will help you achieve the goals that we're all looking for, particularly for Medical Watch. So that's great. Um, I Again, I will call out, is there anybody who has any questions, any more questions for Avik? Please feel free to jump up on stage, or I'll bring you up on stage. Just put up your hand, request for talking privileges. Oh, we do. Great. Jasmine, I'm bringing you up right now.
Hey everyone. So thank you, Avik, for the amazing presentation. I've learned a lot here today. I'm not in the medical field per se, but I am in science and DeSci. I'm a data scientist. I have my own startup called Rectify AI, and so we analyze risk in crypto, and just educate the community about how to store your private keys, what risk factors to look for in projects, and what have you. I wanted to kind of touch on the beautiful story, the anecdote that you had about your dad. Now, he has a whole mineral named after him. What is it called again?
Yeah, thank you. By the way, thanks for the introduction. Good to meet you. The mineral is called gauchite, and it's his last name, which is Ghose, and then ite. My father's name, well, he's passed now, but his name was Dr. Ghosh, and so the mineral is called gauchite.
Amazing, amazing. And I wanted to ask you, so I'm really interested in the trajectory of DeSci and how it's going to disrupt the medical field. A lot of what I've been hearing and in reading is about, of course, kind of disabling some of the barriers that academia has when it comes to trying to get research funding. I myself, I'm a licensed researcher, and I just wanted to know your perspective of what's the strategy behind how us as kind of like the Web3 community in science are going to like go about disrupting these things that are embedded in institutions such as colleges, institutions, big pharma, hospitals, and what have you.
Wow, that's a big question. I don't know if I'm qualified to answer, but I will give you my best thoughts on it, which is one part is making medical research and information from whether they are large scale clinical trials or smaller investigator sponsored studies or investigator sponsored trials, which you can think of like mini trials, making the information and accessible to everyone through open access systems like a bioarchive or a meta archive, making all the data freely accessible so that scientists can attempt to reproduce the results, right? So that's part of it. That's already being done. And I think that the other key part, which I haven't seen addressed, maybe Jelani or someone else in the audience has seen addressed, is today, if you are, as I'm sure you know, if you're a young scientist, getting published in Cell, Nature, or Science is a really key stepping stone. It's an inflection point. If you want to join an elite medical institution like an MD Anderson or Cleveland Clinic, or if you want to join the staff or faculty at one of these organizations, you really need to get published in one of these top journals. So that's the case today. I haven't seen, again, Jelani, keep me honest here, I haven't seen anyone try to replicate that. So how do we give scientists the recognition, the prestige in return for their work in a way that doesn't involve journals? Because I think that if we're successful, then a scientist like yourself or perhaps one of your colleagues, if you are able to conduct research and experiments which are really breakthrough experiments or research, if you would publish your results immediately on Twitter or YouTube or bioarchive instead of going to those top tier journals which have archaic practices, then I know we'll be successful. If publishing everything in an open access way is the number one choice of aspiring researchers, then I think we'll be successful. I don't know if that's helpful.
I'll chime in here with that point.
Absolutely.
So sorry, hi, Jasmine. Thank you for asking that very good question, Avik. Thank you for fielding it. With regards to impact factor of the journal and its application on you as a scientist, there are entities in the DeSci space that are currently looking to kind of turn that over on its end, similar to how Medical Watch is doing. in developing unique ways using, Web3 tooling for certification that will help you prove. So it'll be validity of skill set through proving. So you contribute to reviewing XY article, you provide XY data, you have a record, a ledger of your track history, of your scientific skill sets and the like. There are organizations that are building ways to kind of correlate, or not correlate, but to gather this data in such a way as to give you certification in the Web3 space to say, yes, you are qualified as this individual. You have a proven track history. And so you will not, the hope being that you will not need to have these archaic proof stamped by nature or cells saying, yeah, they did it. No, anybody can just show with their feet, with their hands, with their capabilities, with their history that, yeah, they can do it. And as the wider community, I believe, starts to onboard into Web3, which I do believe will happen, we will no longer need those archaic systems and it'll just be built into how we move as scientists. And so not to chill too much, but one example of this, you can look into DeSci Labs. So they have a suite of products that they're building, and that is one of their mission statements that they're building. There are a few other ones. There are people who are looking to upend the peer reviewing process, and the like. And so Scurf is one, Talent DAO is another one. But for that specific impact factor and how do you validate an individual as a marker, we at DeSci World are looking to build opportunities for that, and DeSci Labs is also doing that. So feel free to reach out to us, to them, and we will discuss more on this. And so finally, as we approach the end of this space, this very great space, and again, I'd like to thank all the questionnaires, everybody who had a question and came up. Avik, obviously, thank you for being here. I will allow Caro, who is our team member, another core member from DeSci World, to speak and to kind of give you guys a surprise.
Hey everyone, good afternoon. I was very glad to hear the story. I'm sorry, Abik, that you had that car accident, but it turns good at the end. So I think sometimes just situations that we live, it's just they're supposed to happen. So I'm very glad that it worked at the end and you didn't get hurt. And I want to take the chance to say hi to Maria from Saidao. I am very happy that you joined. And this is I am also very happy that you and Avik are meeting in these spaces, and perhaps you can join forces and create something together. I think this is one of our biggest goals in DeSci World, to connect people from different parts of the world to see that they can work together and create something amazing. So that's it. And just our final, just this was my final thought. And I want to tell you all, now that are listening to these spaces, that we are going to drop some POAPs for listen to our spaces. So stay tuned. We are going to DM you, and we are going to send the link so you can claim your POAP at the end.
That's great. Thank you, Carol, for that. It's always nice to get, cool NFTs to showcase. And I think, Jasmine, to your point, things like that, showing that you are present at, scientific conferences, scientific discussions, are one of the use cases of Web3 to kind of validate an individual's credibility over these, like I said, more archaic forms that are beneficial to the parties that issue them and not so much the individuals who are getting them. And so with that, as we near the top of the hour, I would like to again thank everybody. Avik, thank you very much. I always love to speak with you. And yeah, that's it. I hope everybody has a great day. Avik, I'll let you close off with any final statements, any commentary. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Jelani. Thanks, everyone, for having me, and hope you found this useful. Again, feel free to DM me on Twitter or through support at Medical Watch, any way you can find, but we'd love to work with you in the community to hopefully build a better world for all of us.
Absolutely. I'll be in touch. Well, everybody, have a great rest of the day, wherever your time is. Enjoy your weekends. Be safe. Don't get into any car accidents. But if you do, hopefully that means something good is coming down the line. Avik,
Right.
always a pleasure.
Okay. Thanks.
Have a great day,
Take
guys.
care.
Goodbye.
Bye.